Zukunft is the German word for future, and that's why BMW named these vehicles Z, because it was the future of the brand. Everything started 6 generations ago with the BMW Z1, followed by the Z3, the Z8, and then this is the 3rd vehicle in that class to come with the Z4 designation. Our spotlight is on this 2020 BMW Z4 M40i. This is the full performance version as of right now for the Z4. We're going to be going over everything you need to know about it. It is built on the cluster architecture platform, which shares pretty much the same platform with all the modern G-code BMWs, as well as the Toyota Supra. So we're going to be telling you everything about this car, doing some winter testing, and seeing if it's worth $84,395 Canadian. Am I the only one that thinks $84,000 is pricey for this? I mean, it's not even an M car. Really, the only 2 generations that had a proper M car version was the E36/7 and /8 Z3s. Those had the M Roadster and M Coupé. Then the preceding generation, the E85, was also an M car. They had the Z4M. They don't have one for this generation as of filming this. Maybe they will, who knows, but the M40i is the closest thing that we get. It comes with BMW's 3-liter straight-6 twin-power turbo engine, producing 381 horsepower, 368 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers differ a little bit. I've seen both 382 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque on BMW's website, but the documents that we were given from BMW Canada have those numbers. It has an 8-speed Steptronic sport transmission. It's rear-wheel drive only, and they say it does 0 to 100 kilometers in 4.5 seconds. Not bad at all. And because this car is so small, even though it has gotten bigger this generation, it handles incredibly well. Now, 84 grand, I mean, that sounds pricey, right? How do we get to that? Has $895 paint, the Misano blue metallic paint, $1,500 for the cognac vernasca leather. It would have 19-inch style 799M jet black rims for $500. We've removed that from our MSRP because they're not on this car. You also have the $250 high gloss black kidney grills. I would skip that, just stick with the regular M Performance ones. The driver assistance package for $1,650 Canadian adds active cruise control with stop and go, plus the parking assistant. And then the premium package for $4,000. That's ambient lighting, park distance control on the front and back, color head-up display, a 12-speaker, 464-watt Harmon Kardon audio system, wireless charging, which does not work with my iPhone. It just heats it up, doesn't actually charge it, and Wi-Fi. Aside from different paint and interior trim options, the only other thing you could add to this specific car as configured would be $300 for the M seatbelts that we saw in the BMW M4. Now this is 85 millimeters longer, 75 millimeters wider, and 13 millimeters taller than the previous generation Z4. Now they've shrunk the wheelbase by 26 millimeters, but the track is wider at 1,609 millimeters on the front and 1,616 millimeters on the back. I mean, it sounds like an improvement. They don't actually say on the press website what those numbers were originally, but that's what the track is now on the vehicle. So you have a little bit wider at the back by a tiny amount. And then if you get the rims configured slightly differently than the winter setup we have here, it'll be even sportier. But I have to say that this car handles incredibly well, despite the fact that it is a roadster. A lot of people would prefer a proper coupe, a 2-door, 2-seater to be able to get the job done. But if you're looking to have some fun, you don't necessarily want to go with the M4 that we featured a couple weeks back. This could be a great option for you. Now, BMW says they have a newly designed double joint spring and strut suspension in the front with a 5-link rear suspension setup. The M40i also comes with the adaptive M suspension, M Sport brakes, and the M Sport differential with a 10mm lower ride height and electronically controlled dampers. Now, unlike previous generations of the Z4 and the Z3, the Z8 and the Z1 that I probably could not fit in, this is a little bit easier if you're a bigger person or a taller person. BMW says that they have extended the seat rails by 23 millimeters, and I do fit in this, and that's the problem with the only other roadster I've ever driven in my life, the 2018 Mazda MX-5. I couldn't fit because my head was too tall. I was in the roof. With this one, I have good amount of space vertically. Horizontally is a little tight, but that's to be expected for a car like this. It's not really designed for a guy who's big like me, but I do fit into it. They also say that the trunk is 281 liters, which is an increase of 50% more than the previous generation. So if you want to put stuff in the back, you've got that option. Plus, the actual convertible top doesn't go into the trunk area. It's in its own little section, so you don't have to worry about taking up space like we did on the M4. So you do have a lot of space in the back there. I think that the exterior design looks really good. Different look completely than anything else on the market from BMW today. You've got the stacked headlights on the front, the new honeycomb style grille with the kidney grills in the front. And overall, the car looks really good, especially from the back. I like the look of it overall. And personally, I would take this over the Supra because I like a convertible. Plus, I think the design of this looks way better. But let's jump on into it now, talk about a little bit of the inside as we drive around, and go over everything else you need to know about the 2020 BMW Z4 M40i. And hopefully we're going to get some snow to be able to test how this car does in the winter. Well, we got what I asked for. We got some snow. It's not a lot, but I mean, there is snow on the ground. There hasn't been any plowing or de-icing. And actually, last night, it rained a considerable amount here, and then it started to snow, you know, kind of into today. So we do have some rougher weather to be testing this Z4 in. And that's the thing. I mean, there are thousands of videos on this car doing performance stuff. There's probably hundreds of them on the track, and then there's going to be even more just talking about it on the street. And then there's probably going to be at least 100 videos comparing this with the Supra. But this is probably the only video taking the Z4 in the winter, which is what we're doing here. Now, the roof is open for two reasons. It's a twofold reasoning here. First of all, if I'm paying $85,000 for a car, I want to use $85,000 of that car, and that includes the convertible roof. So I'm going to keep it down, but also it's a little tight in here. I have a little problem getting in and out, but also for the lighting. I mean, there's not a lot of light. Obviously, there's no sunroof because it is a convertible top, so you can't actually see too much when we have the roof up. So it's more for the cameras to you be able to see it, and for me also just to enjoy sort of the day. It says it's about -1 right now with a wind chill of about -8 around that, but it's actually not too bad. With the heating systems on here, everything's good. We've got the heated steering wheel and heated seats, and they do work incredibly well. But let's talk about the price. I mean, almost $85,000 for this car, right? Yeah, you can configure it slightly differently. Maybe you don't want to have these exact seats, and maybe you don't want to pay about $900 for the paint, so you can configure it slightly differently. But I mean, it still is an expensive vehicle. It starts off, you know, around $76,000, around that. So you're looking at quite a bit for the M40i. And if you want a performance roadster, I mean, this is one option to go for. If you want a cruiser, get the regular, the entry level, at least here in North America. But people are looking at this because they do want the performance. And I can tell you that when it's not snowing out, this car performs very well. It feels like it's on rails when you're taking it around the corners. Even with winter tires, it still grips and handles incredibly well. And if you were to drive this in the summer with proper summer tires and a nice condition out, you'd be for a real spectacle. It'd be a lot of fun driving it around. Performance is there as well. Pickup is great. Even with the rear-wheel drive, you still get that 4.5 seconds roughly, 0 to 100. The exhaust is kind of meh. I wouldn't say it's overly exciting. Even when you start the car up in sport mode, I mean, it doesn't really excite a whole lot. There's not a ton of drama coming out of the back, but for an M40i series engine, it isn't too bad, but it still just feels pretty expensive. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Would you be paying this kind of money? I know that there aren't a ton of options for small roadsters out there. You can get bigger roadsters. I mean, it's not just the few that we mentioned during our walk around, but in this size segment, the options are pretty limited, especially when you want a luxury vehicle now that the Mercedes SLC is no longer available. So you can see here on these roads, it's a little bit better. They've plowed it, or there's just been more road traffic, so the roads are a little bit better. I don't lose as much traction. Obviously, you still want to be safe. Winter tires are always at the beginning of the driving segment at the bottom of your screen, so you can see the specs. It's a very handsome car overall. I like the design of it. Personally, I prefer this over the Supra. Even if this wasn't the convertible, if they made a coupe version again, then I would probably still like the design of this over the Supra. But it depends on what you want out of the vehicle. And I gotta say that everything really ticks it off in terms of what a roadster should be. It has the performance, it's got the look for it. The convertible top takes 10 seconds, and you can do that at 50 kilometers an hour. So if you are in the middle of a rainstorm or snowstorm, whatever it may be, you're kind of driving, you don't want to stop for those 10 seconds, you just throw the roof up. Now, I've been driving around all week in Sport Plus mode. Right now, we're in comfort mode with the stop-start system off, just because it is unfortunate weather outside. But you can see, even again, back on roads that aren't plowed yet, not quite as bad as what we saw a few weeks ago with the BMW M550i xDrive, But still, I mean, they're not plowed, and the car's doing a good job. And again, the winter tires are what's key when it comes to that. You want to have the most amount of control when you're on roads like this. And again, it's also not just you, it's the other people on the road too. So you need to be able to adapt to whatever the road conditions may be, as well as the other people on them. But even if, I'm giving it some gas now, and it's smart enough. It knows that I'm losing traction, so it's not giving more throttle. Smart system there, even though this does not have xDrive. So let's see, we're at a stop here. We're not going to go full throttle, but again, no, it won't. It will not let me go. I could turn off traction control and that would change things completely, but we're not looking at this from a no traction control perspective. I want to see how this vehicle is from a safety perspective in the winter if you're driving this 365 days out of the year. And I gotta say, so far it's very impressive. So we'll take a turn here. It's on snow. Give it some acceleration. We lose a little bit of the rear. Comes back in. No problem. Traction control is what's keeping us in line, keeping us safe. That's one of the reasons why you buy a luxury vehicle. BMW has a lot of experience when it comes to traction and stability control, and they know what they're doing. Would this be my first choice when it comes to a winter vehicle? Absolutely not. Oh, and then look, we're stuck. Oh, it's very slushy here, and they really don't do any good amount of winter maintenance. I mean, they don't care here in Quebec. So it is a little tough sometimes, but you know, if you need to, maybe you buy this, you don't necessarily want to take it out in the winter, but you do have to for whatever reason. This might give you a better idea of how it performs in the snow. Science, that's what we're doing here. We are doing this, we're taking one for the team, testing this Z4 in the winter. And you know what, I don't even have the heating system on full. What I usually do with these Roadsters, if I'm driving it in the winter with the roof down, is I'll have the heated seats on level 2, heated steering wheel on, and I've got the heating systems at 24 at about mid power, still on fully automatic mode. And it's actually pretty comfortable in here. I don't have any issues. I mean, okay, the top of my head's got some snow on it, and my ears are just a tiny little bit cold. That can be alleviated with a hat. I'm keeping that off just so that I don't mess up my hairdo for the video. But the point is, you could do it if you were silly and crazy like I am, but it does work, and it, again, is a good way for me to test how the other supplementary heating systems work on this car. And I never have any issues with BMW's heated seats. They get hot incredibly quick. Usually I'll put it down to 1 right away, but when I have the roof down, I'll keep it on 2 for a little bit. I almost never use the most powerful setting. It's just too hot. It keeps my butt on fire. I mean, I'm a little curious to see, can we get it to slide? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's just this road is not really great for it, so. Oh, entering into the D dimension, the drift dimension. There you go. It will slide. There's no doubt about that. Road conditions are okay. I'd say they're favorable for that kind of driving, but it's the road itself that's not favorable. There's so many dips and turns on this garbage pavement that they make here. It's just not as fun. Oh, we talked about the traction that we've got, or lack thereof. If I slam on the brakes, yeah, I mean, it grips. You know, you got ABS, you're good to go. Again, winter tires are going to help the most. But yeah, I mean, it's just, there's nothing wrong with the car. It's just the road sucks. Most people aren't going to have to drive in this. I mean, again, almost probably like 99.9% of people who buy the Z4, especially the M40i, will not be taking this in the winter. I mean, you're going to be keeping it at home, probably in the garage. So you're not going to be driving this in the winter. But if you have to, I'm sure you're living in a place that actually plows and de-ices in a timely fashion so that people are actually safe when they're on the road and not having to fend for themselves like we do here in the Wild West. Sure, the BMW Z4 M40i is meant to be the performance-oriented version of their Roadster, but without an actual M car like some of the previous generations, buyers looking at this top-end motor will still want a fuel-efficient cruiser to use during the summer. We averaged 6.9 liters per 100 kilometers during our 100 kilometer test loop, or 34 US miles per gallon in Eco Pro mode. We spent the rest of our week in Sport Plus mode, often with manual shifting, and brought our average up to 10.3 liters per 100 kilometers, or 22.8 mpg. Overall good numbers if you drive it well, and it starts off our likes list. We also really like the look of the Z4, sticking to some of BMW's core design traits while bringing a fresh look to both the Z Series and their modern vehicle lineup. The overall performance of the M40i was great, considering it gets a boost over early M40i engines like we featured earlier this year in the 2019 X4 M40i. The handling of the Z4 is also going to be one of the key reasons to consider this Roadster, as its small wheelbase and wide enough track provides a go-kart-like experience that backs up its sporty appearance. Finally, the interior space improvement they made over the previous generation is a plus for us, as I often have trouble fitting into these tiny Roadsters to begin with. Taller drivers are often excluded from enjoying these cars without the roof down, but the Z4 was spacious enough. Dislikes aren't too heavy either. In fact, we had no major complaints about the Z4's overall package, though we would like to see a more dramatic exhaust with the M Performance model. The lack of a hardtop convertible is also disappointing, but the lack of a coupé version might turn off some buyers completely. And the only other dislike we had was with the wireless charger. We seem to have inconsistent experiences across BMW's lineup when it comes to this. My iPhone 8 never charged more than a couple percentage points, even on an hour-long drive, but it sure warmed it up to the point where having the heated steering wheel could be redundant while I was parked. But have we answered our question? Does this BMW Z4's $84,000 price point make sense? Now, the Audi TT can do 0 to 100 kilometers in a tenth of a second faster, but is only available as a coupe in Canada, but does that time with less power because of its Quattro all-wheel drive system. Head on over to Porsche with the 718 Boxster S and you've got it at 4.6 seconds, but the starting MSRP is $81,000 Canadian and it will get more expensive unless you like bragging about your base model Boxster to everyone who'll listen. And the closest 100 kilometer time that the Jaguar F-Type can get without going with the all-wheel drive system is 4.9 seconds, and that's a $94,500 starting point, though it really does compete more with the Mercedes SL Roadster. So that leaves the BMW looking pretty good at this price point as far as prestige roadsters go. We'd skip the $250 black kidney grills and accents to do this Z4 M40i test drive style, leaving everything else as is. The $84,000 BMW Roadster deserves every rounded up penny of our hard-earned Canuck bucks.